The coffee cup shattered against the floor. The man's face had gone gray. Claire Anderton knew that look. She'd seen it once before the night her father collapsed at their kitchen table and never got back up. "Sir?" Her voice cut through the empty diner. "Sir, stay with me." The stranger in booth 7 clutched his chest, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide the terror in his eyes. Rain hammered against the windows of Mel's corner diner, and Claire's worn sneakers squeaked as she rushed toward him. This moment, this single choice to move toward danger instead of away from it, would shatter everything she thought she knew about her small, careful life. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Unbroken Truths. Where are you watching from tonight? I hope you're doing well, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do, because the story I'm about to share with you will remind you why one moment of kindness can change absolutely everything. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. What if the stranger dying in front of you held the key to everything you'd been fighting for? Claire had been wiping down the same sticky tables at Mel's for 12 years. 12 years of grease-stained aprons and aching feet. 12 years of counting tips twice to make sure she had enough for rent. At 35, she'd learned to read people the way other women read magazines. The businessman hiding divorce papers under his coffee, the elderly woman who ordered soup just to have someone listen, the trucker counting change with trembling hands. But the man in booth 7 was different. His suit whispered real money, the kind that didn't worry about whether the car would start or if the electric bill could wait another week. Yet something about the way he'd been sitting there for an hour, coffee untouched, made Claire's instincts scream. She'd learned to trust those instincts. When you're raising a 7-year-old daughter alone, working the late shift where every tip matters, you develop a sixth sense about people. The October rain had driven away the other customers. Just her, old Pete at the counter, and the stranger who'd barely looked up when she'd brought his coffee. That's when she noticed his hand pressed against his chest, the pale sheen across his forehead, the way his breathing had become shallow, labored. "More coffee?" she'd asked, approaching with the pot. "Just the check," he'd managed, his voice strained. Claire set down the check, started to walk away, then stopped. Her daughter Sophia always said she cared too much about strangers. But Claire couldn't help it, not when someone looked the way this man looked, not when every instinct she had was screaming danger. "Are you feeling all right?" She kept her voice gentle. "You look a little pale." The man tried to smile, tried to wave her off. That's when the pain hit him. Sharp, crushing, radiating down his left arm like lightning splitting a tree. The coffee cup slipped from his fingers, the sound of shattering ceramic impossibly loud in the quiet diner. He doubled over, his face turning the color of November storms. "Sir!" Claire was beside him instantly, her hand on his shoulder. "Sir, what's your name? Stay with me." "Benjamin," he gasped. "Can't breathe." Something cold and focused took over Claire's mind. The CPR training from her volunteer work at the fire department, the classes she'd taken after her father died, vowing never to feel that helpless again, kicked in like muscle memory. "Benjamin, look at me." She kept her voice steady even as her hands shook. "I'm Claire. You're having chest pains, but you're going to be okay. Do you hear me? You're going to be okay." She was already dialing 911, her movements quick and sure. "I need an ambulance at Mel's Corner Diner on Route 34. Middle-aged man, chest pains, severe difficulty breathing." Benjamin's hand found hers, gripping with desperate strength. His eyes, she'd remember those eyes forever, held a terror that had nothing to do with the pain and everything to do with the loneliness she saw there. "Is there someone I should call?" Claire knelt beside his booth, one hand still on his shoulder. "Family?" He shook his head weakly. "No one. Here was a man whose suit cost more than Claire made in 6 months, and a stranger was the only person holding his hand as his heart tried to kill him. "Just stay," he whispered. "Please." "I'm not going anywhere," Claire promised, squeezing his hand tighter. In the distance, sirens began to wail through the rain, growing louder, coming closer. Neither of them knew that a photographer was already pulling into the parking lot, camera ready. Neither of them knew that by morning, their faces would be everywhere. That Claire's quiet, invisible life was about to explode in ways she couldn't imagine. Neither of them knew that the man dying in booth 7 wasn't just Benjamin. He was Benjamin Corleone, billionaire, tech mogul, one of the most powerful men in the country. And Claire Anderton, single mother and waitress, had just saved his life. But saving him was the easy part. What came next would test everything she believed about pride, trust, and whether two people from completely different worlds could ever truly understand each other. The paramedics burst through the diner's glass doors like a wave of organized chaos. Claire stepped back as they surrounded Benjamin, their movements efficient and practiced. Medical equipment, urgent voices, the sharp smell of antiseptic cutting through the scent of old coffee. But Benjamin's hand shot out, reaching for her again, his eyes pleading through the oxygen mask they'd already strapped to his face. "Don't leave," he managed between labored breaths. "I'll follow in my car," Claire promised, though she had absolutely no idea why she was making that promise. Her shift wasn't over. Her babysitter was only paid until midnight. This man was a complete stranger. She should let the professionals handle this, should go back to wiping tables and counting tips and getting home to Sophia. But something in his eyes reminded her of her daughter during thunderstorms, that raw, vulnerable fear that needed someone to stay close, to not let go. 20 minutes later, Claire sat in the waiting room of Mercy General Hospital, still wearing her coffee-stained uniform, feeling completely out of place among the sterile walls and hushed conversations. She'd called Mrs. Chen next door, explaining she'd be late without really explaining why. What could she say? That she was sitting in a hospital for a man she'd known for 2 hours? That something about his loneliness had grabbed hold of her heart and wouldn't let go? Claire pulled out her phone, looking at her bank account. The number stared back at her like an accusation. Rent was due in 5 days. Sophia needed new shoes. Her toes were already pressing against the front of her current pair. The electricity bill had a late notice attached. She'd been fighting so hard for so long. Ever since Sophia's father had walked out when their daughter was 2, leaving nothing but empty promises and unpaid debts. Claire had worked double shifts, taken online classes at night, trying to finish her social work degree, volunteered at the fire department because helping people was the only thing that made sense when everything else felt impossible. Her mother had raised her to be proud, to earn what you had, to never take handouts or charity. Claire had lived her entire life by those rules, even when those rules made everything harder. "Ma'am?" A doctor in green scrubs approached, clipboard in hand. "Are you here for Benjamin Corleone?" Claire nodded, the last name not registering. "Is he?" "He's stable. Massive stress-induced cardiac episode, but we caught it in time." The doctor's smile was tired but genuine. "You saved his life by calling when you did. Another 10 minutes and we'd be having a very different conversation." Something warm flooded Claire's chest. Relief. Gratitude. The bone-deep satisfaction of having made the right choice. "He's been asking for you," the doctor continued. "Room 304, if you'd like to see him." Walking through the cardiac unit felt surreal. Claire's sneakers squeaked against the polished floors, monitors beeped from every room. The air smelled like disinfectant and fear. Benjamin looked smaller in the hospital bed, connected to machines that tracked every beat of his recovering heart. But his eyes were alert, and they lit up when she entered. "You came." His voice was rough but stronger. "I said I would." Claire pulled a chair close to his bed, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and drained. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck." Benjamin tried to smile. "But alive, thanks to you." He studied her face and really looked at her for the first time. Kind eyes, worry lines that spoke of too many hard days, hands that had worked for everything they'd earned. No jewelry except a simple silver necklace. Hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with genuine warmth. "I need to tell you something," Benjamin said slowly. "The name on my credit card, Corleone Industries, that's my company. I'm not just Benjamin. I'm Benjamin Corleone." He watched for recognition, for the change that always came when people realized who he was. But Claire just looked confused. "Should that mean something to me?" For the first time in years, Benjamin laughed. Here was someone who'd saved his life without knowing his net worth, without calculating what she might gain. Someone who'd knelt beside him in a diner because she cared, not because she had to. "I run a technology company," he explained. "A big one. I'm very wealthy." Claire's expression shifted then, not to greed or calculation, but to something that made Benjamin's heart sink despite the medications keeping it steady. Distance. Caution. The same look his ex-wife had given him when she'd finally admitted the money wasn't worth the loneliness. The same look his college friends had worn when they'd realized he was going places they couldn't follow. "Oh," Claire started to stand. "I should go. I'm sure you have people who should be here instead of." "No," Benjamin's hand caught hers. "Please, there's no one else. My ex-wife remarried 2 years ago. My parents are gone. My business partners are competitors more than friends." His voice cracked slightly. "You're here because you chose to be, not because of what I can give you. Do you know how rare that is?" The monitors beeped faster as his emotions spiked. Claire settled back into her chair, her instincts overriding her discomfort. The man in front of her wasn't a billionaire right now. He was just someone who'd almost died, someone who was afraid and alone. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay a little longer." Benjamin closed his eyes, still holding her hand, feeling truly safe for the first time in years. But neither of them saw the photographer outside the window, camera pressed against the glass. Neither of them knew that by morning, their story would be front-page news. Claire's face would be plastered across every screen and newspaper in the city with the headline, "Billionaire's Mystery Angel, Local Waitress Saves Tech Mogul's Life." Neither of them knew that the media firestorm was about to turn Claire's carefully constructed life upside down. And neither of them could have predicted that the real challenge wasn't saving Benjamin's life. It was figuring out how two people from completely different worlds could ever truly understand each other, especially when pride, privacy, and a lifetime of different struggles stood between them. Meanwhile, 50 miles away in a glass tower that scraped the sky, Benjamin's assistant was fielding the first of what would become hundreds of calls. News traveled fast in their world. Benjamin Corleone had collapsed. Benjamin Corleone was in the hospital. Benjamin Corleone had been saved by a waitress. The machine was already starting to churn. And back in Claire's modest apartment, 7-year-old Sophia slept peacefully, unaware that when she woke up, their lives would never be the same again. Unaware that the cameras were coming, that the questions were coming, that everything her mother had worked so hard to protect, their privacy, their normalcy, their quiet life, was about to be ripped away. The choice to help a stranger had saved Benjamin's life, but it was about to cost Claire everything she held dear. 3 days later, Claire's world exploded. The newspaper photo showed her holding Benjamin's hand in the hospital, her face etched with concern, his eyes closed in what the caption called peaceful trust. The headline made her stomach drop. "Billionaire's Mystery Angel, Local Waitress Saves Tech Mogul's Life." Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since dawn. "Mom, there are people with cameras outside," Sophia whispered, peeking through their apartment's torn curtains. At 7 years old, she didn't understand why strangers wanted to talk to her mother, but she could feel Claire's anxiety like a heavy blanket over their small home. Claire pulled her daughter close, her hands shaking. "It's okay, sweetheart. They'll leave soon." But they didn't leave. By noon, 3 news vans were parked on their street. Reporters knocked on neighbors' doors, asking about the hero waitress. Claire's phone buzzed with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Her Facebook had exploded with friend requests. Her email inbox was flooded. She'd called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years because reporters were camped outside Mel's diner asking customers about her. The manager had called, his voice strained, saying maybe she should take a few days off until things calmed down. Claire felt exposed, violated, like her privacy had been stolen and sold for entertainment. Her phone buzzed again. Benjamin called for the 4th time that day. She answered, her voice tight. "Please stop calling." "Rachel, just let me explain." "It's Claire," she corrected, her exhaustion bleeding through. "And there's nothing to explain. You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone would do. But I want to help." Benjamin's voice was earnest, desperate. "I know about your student loans, your daughter's medical bills from last year, the rent that's due in 2 days." Claire's blood ran cold. "How do you know about that?" The silence stretched between them, heavy with Benjamin's regret. I had someone look into, he paused. I wanted to know how to help properly. You investigated me? Claire's voice cracked. Like I'm some kind of project? Benjamin sat in his penthouse office, surrounded by luxury that felt meaningless now. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, but all he could see was the hurt in Claire's voice. He'd handled this all wrong, approaching her life like a business problem to solve instead of understanding that she was a proud woman who'd never asked for charity. It wasn't like that, he said. I just wanted. I know what you wanted. Claire's words came out sharp, defensive. Rich man feels guilty, throws money at a poor waitress. Everyone feels better. Well, I'm not your tax write-off. That's not fair. Benjamin's own pain leaked through. You don't know what it's like. Every friendship, every relationship, everyone wants something. You were different. You didn't even know who I was, and now I do know. Claire looked at Sophia coloring at their kitchen table, trying to pretend she wasn't listening. I know you're the kind of person who investigates someone instead of just asking, who thinks money solves everything. Claire, please. She ended the call. Benjamin stared at his phone, feeling more alone than he had in the hospital. He'd spent 42 years building walls to protect himself from people who wanted his money, and now he'd lost the one person who didn't. That evening, things got worse. Claire opened her front door to take out the trash and found a microphone shoved in her face. Miss Anderton, how does it feel to save a billionaire's life? Did you know who he was when you helped him? Is it true he's offered you money? How much? Are you two in a relationship? The questions came like punches. Claire stumbled back, slamming the door, her heart racing. Through the window, she could see more reporters arriving. A helicopter circled overhead. Sophia started crying. Mommy, I'm scared. Claire held her daughter, feeling rage build in her chest. This wasn't fair. She'd done the right thing, the thing her parents had taught her to do, the thing any decent person would do, and now she was being punished for it. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. How much did Corleone pay you to stage this? The public deserves the truth. Another text. Gold digger. Another. You're just using him for his money. Claire's hands shook as she blocked the numbers, but more kept coming. The comments on the news articles were even worse, half calling her a saint, half calling her a scammer. Neither version was true. Neither version was her. She'd grown up poor but proud, raised by parents who believed in earning what you had. Her father had worked construction until his heart gave out. Her mother had cleaned offices at night to keep food on the table. They'd taught Claire that dignity wasn't about how much money you had. It was about how you treated people. Benjamin's investigation felt like pity, and pity was something Claire couldn't accept. Mommy, why are you crying? Sophia's small hand touched Claire's cheek. Just tired, sweetheart. Claire wiped her eyes. Just tired. But she wasn't just tired, she was furious, hurt, betrayed. She'd saved a stranger's life, and somehow that had become ammunition for the world to tear her apart. 50 miles away, Benjamin was learning something about himself. For the first time in his adult life, someone had walked away from his money. And instead of relief, he felt devastated. His assistant, Patricia, stood in his office doorway. Sir, the media requests are getting out of hand. We need to make a statement. No statement. Benjamin's voice was hollow. But sir, I said no. He turned to face her. Patricia, how did the press find out about Claire? About the hospital? Patricia shifted uncomfortably. There was a photographer outside the cardiac unit. The photo went viral within hours. And the background check I ordered? On Claire Anderton? Sir, that was through proper channels. Confidential. Nothing's confidential when you're me. Benjamin felt sick. Everything I touch gets exposed, exploited, even when I'm trying to do something good. He thought about Claire's voice on the phone, the hurt, the anger, the pride. He'd spent 20 years building Corleone Industries from nothing. He'd revolutionized cloud computing, made billions, changed the tech landscape. But he couldn't figure out how to help one person without destroying everything they valued. His ex-wife's words came back to him. You think money is the answer to everything, Ben, but sometimes people need you to just be human. He hadn't understood then. He was starting to understand now. The turning point came at midnight. Claire was lying awake, Sophia finally asleep beside her, when she heard breaking glass downstairs. She grabbed her phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. Someone just broke into my apartment. But when the police arrived 15 minutes later, they found only a brick with a note tied to it, lying in her living room surrounded by shattered window glass. The note said, "Stop lying about Corleone. Gold diggers always get what's coming." The police officer, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked at Claire with sympathy. "Miss Anderton, I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't going to stop. Not until the media finds something else to chase." "But I didn't do anything wrong," Claire whispered. "I know." The officer squeezed her shoulder. "But that doesn't matter to them." After the police left, Claire sat on her couch, Sophia sleeping upstairs at Mrs. Chen's apartment for safety, and stared at the boarded-up window. She'd worked so hard to build a safe life for her daughter. A quiet life. A good life. And in one moment of kindness, it had all been ripped away. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Benjamin. "I'm so sorry. Please let me help. Please." Claire stared at the message for a long time. She thought about her parents, about the values they'd taught her, about pride and dignity and earning your way. But she also thought about the brick on her floor, about Sophia's tears, about the reporters who wouldn't leave, about how sometimes pride wasn't strength, it was just stubbornness dressed up in prettier clothes. Her mother used to say, "Being strong doesn't mean never accepting help. It means knowing when you can't do it alone." Claire took a deep breath and typed back, "We need to talk, in person, somewhere private." The response came immediately. "Tomorrow, I'll send a car, somewhere the press won't find us." Claire set down her phone, her hands still shaking. She'd saved Benjamin's life in that diner. But tomorrow, she'd have to decide if he could save hers, or if accepting his help would cost her the last thing she had left, her sense of who she was. The car Benjamin sent wasn't flashy. A simple sedan with tinted windows, driven by a quiet man who knew how to lose reporters. Claire left at dawn, slipping out the back while Sophia stayed with Mrs. Chen and watched her neighborhood disappear in the rearview mirror. They met at a private estate an hour outside the city. No cameras, no press, just silence and the sound of wind through trees. Benjamin was waiting on the terrace, looking nothing like the powerful mogul from the headlines. No suit, just jeans and a sweater, dark circles under his eyes that matched hers. "Thank you for coming," he said. Claire nodded, keeping distance between them. "Someone threw a brick through my window last night." Benjamin's face went pale. "Claire, Don't." She held up her hand. "I didn't come here for apologies. I came because I need this to stop. My daughter is terrified. I can't work. I can't live. So tell me, how do we make this go away?" Benjamin looked at her and saw the exhaustion, the fear, the fierce determination that had made her kneel beside a dying stranger in the first place. "I'll make a statement," he said. "Tell them you were just a good Samaritan, that there's no relationship, no money exchanged, that they need to leave you alone. Will that work? Probably not." Benjamin's honesty was brutal, but it's a start. They sat in silence for a moment, two people from completely different worlds trying to figure out how to fix a mess neither of them had asked for. "Why did you investigate me?" Claire asked quietly. "The truth." Benjamin exhaled slowly. "Because for 20 years, everyone who's come into my life has wanted something. Money, status, connections. When you saved me, when you didn't even know who I was," he paused, "I wanted to understand you, to know if you were real. And you're real." His voice was soft, too real for someone like me to understand. "You have principles I forgot existed, pride that actually means something." Claire felt something shift in her chest. "You want to know what's funny? My whole life, people have told me my pride is my problem, that I should ask for help more, accept charity. But the one time I help someone without expecting anything back, the world decides I must have an angle." "People are cynical," Benjamin said, "especially about people like me." "People like you? Rich, powerful, they assume everyone around us is using us." He met her eyes. "Usually they're right." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. "I have a daughter," Claire said suddenly. "Sophia, she's 7, smart as hell and brave, and she deserves better than reporters stalking our apartment." "I know. I saw her in—" Benjamin stopped. "The background check, I'm sorry. Stop apologizing." Claire's voice was sharper now. "Just help me fix this." "Okay." Benjamin pulled out his phone. My publicist is the best. She can craft a narrative that takes the heat off you. We go public together, have a controlled interview, and explain what happened. The press loses interest when they realize there's no scandal. Together? If you're comfortable with that. Benjamin's eyes searched hers. I know I violated your trust, but Claire, I meant what I said. I want to help. Not because I pity you, because you saved my life when you had no reason to. Claire studied him. This man who'd built empires, who investigated her like a business deal, who somehow still managed to look vulnerable sitting across from her. Have you ever had to trust someone who'd already hurt you? Someone who could help you but might cost you everything? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, Claire said finally. We do this together, but I have conditions. Name them. No money, no gifts, no grand gestures. Her voice was steel. And after this is over, after the press moves on, we go our separate ways. You go back to your world. I will go back to mine. Something flickered in Benjamin's eyes. Pain, maybe, or understanding. Deal. They shook hands, a formal, businesslike gesture that felt wrong given that this man had held her hand while dying just days ago. But as Claire pulled away, Benjamin held on for just a moment longer. For what it's worth, he said quietly, meeting you was the best thing that's happened to me in years. Even with all this chaos. Claire felt heat rise to her cheeks. She pulled her hand back, confused by the flutter in her chest. Let's just focus on fixing the mess, she said. But as they planned the press conference, mapped out their strategy, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them. Something neither of them had planned for, something that made separate ways sound less like a solution and more like a loss. The press conference was scheduled for the following evening. Benjamin's publicist, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria, coached Claire for 3 hours on what to say, how to sit, and where to look. Remember, Victoria said, you're the hero. Simple, humble, doing what anyone would do. Benjamin is the grateful survivor. No romance, no money, no controversy. Claire nodded, feeling like she was preparing for battle. That night she couldn't sleep. She paced her apartment window, still boarded up, replaying everything in her mind. At 2 a.m. her phone buzzed. Benjamin, can't sleep either. Want to talk? She shouldn't. This was supposed to be business. Fix the problem, move on, separate worlds. But she called anyway. Hey. His voice was rough, tired. Hey. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. I've been thinking about something. Benjamin said, that night at the diner, you asked if there was anyone you should call family? I remember. I said no, and I meant it. He paused. But the truth is worse than that. There are people I could have called. My ex-wife would have come out of obligation. My COO would have showed up to discuss succession plans. My lawyers would have been there with paperwork. But you were the only person there because you wanted to be. His voice cracked slightly. Do you know how lonely that is? Having hundreds of contacts in your phone and no one you actually want to call? Claire sat down on her couch, her heart aching for him. Yes, she whispered. I do. And she did. After Sophia's father left, after her parents died, she'd learned that loneliness wasn't about being alone. It was about being surrounded by people who didn't really see you. Can I tell you something? Claire said. Something I've never told anyone? Please. When I took those CPR classes after my dad died, it wasn't just about helping people. It was about control. She took a breath. I couldn't save my dad. I was 17 and I watched him die and I couldn't do anything. So I learned, I trained, I volunteered. Because if I could save strangers, maybe it would make up for the one person I couldn't save. Claire. But here's what I realized tonight, she continued. I'm still trying to save everyone, working myself to death at that diner, refusing help because accepting it feels like failure, pushing people away because if they get too close, they might see that I'm barely holding it together. Silence on the other end. You're not barely holding it together, Benjamin said finally. You're raising an amazing daughter. You volunteer, you work hard, you have principles most people abandoned years ago. Or maybe I'm just too stubborn to admit when I need help. Maybe, Benjamin agreed. Or maybe you've never had someone you could actually trust to help you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Benjamin, Claire said slowly, what are we doing here? I don't know. His honesty was disarming. but I know that talking to you at 2 a.m. feels more real than any conversation I've had in years. Claire's heart hammered. This was dangerous territory. She was supposed to be keeping distance, maintaining boundaries. Tomorrow, she said. After the press conference, we should probably not talk like this anymore. Probably not, he agreed. Neither of them hung up. Tell me something else, Benjamin said. Something real. So Claire did. She told him about Sophia's love of dinosaurs, about the social work degree she'd abandoned when money got tight, about her mother's hands worn from cleaning but always gentle, and Benjamin told her about his mother, the woman in that photograph he'd sent, about building his company in a garage, about the moment he realized he'd traded everything meaningful for success. They talked until dawn broke through Claire's boarded window. We should sleep, Claire finally said. Big day tomorrow. Claire? Benjamin's voice was soft. Thank you. For tonight, for everything. Good night, Benjamin. She hung up before he could hear the emotion in her voice. The press conference should have been simple. Claire and Benjamin sat side by side, cameras flashing, answering carefully prepared questions. But then a reporter asked, Mr. Corleone, are you in a relationship with Ms. Anderton? No, Benjamin answered automatically. So you're not attracted to her? Benjamin hesitated just for a second, but that second was enough. Claire felt her face flush. The cameras caught everything. Ms. Anderton saved my life, Benjamin said carefully. I'm grateful to her. That's all. But his voice betrayed him, and Claire heard it. The slight catch, the hesitation. That's all. Later, in the car back to her apartment, Victoria smiled. That went well. The narrative is controlled. This should die down in a few days. But Claire barely heard her. She was replaying that moment, that hesitation. So you're not attracted to her? The pause before. I'm grateful. That's all. When they dropped her at her apartment, Benjamin walked her to the door despite Victoria's protests about being seen together. Claire, he started. Don't, she said. Whatever you're about to say, don't. Why not? Because we agreed, separate worlds. But her voice shook. Benjamin stepped closer. What if I don't want separate worlds anymore? Claire's breath caught. She could feel the cameras that were definitely still watching, feel the risk of what he was suggesting. You don't mean that, she whispered. Tomorrow you'll remember who you are, who I am, and you'll realize this was just gratitude mixed up with trauma. What if it's not? Claire looked up at him, this man who'd been a dying stranger a week ago, who investigated her, who turned her life upside down, who talked to her until dawn like they'd known each other forever. Then we're both in trouble, she said. She went inside before he could respond. Before she could do something stupid like kiss him in front of the cameras that were definitely still watching. But as she closed the door, she touched her fingers to her lips, imagining what that kiss might have felt like. And somewhere in his car, Benjamin did the same thing. The photo went viral overnight. Not from the press conference, from after when Benjamin had walked Claire to her door. The camera had caught them standing close, his hand almost touching her face, the way they looked at each other. The headline, Billionaire Falls for His Savior. Is this a love story or a con? Claire's phone exploded with messages, half calling her a manipulator, half calling it romantic. They all make her life impossible. But worse than the headlines was the call from Sophia's school. Ms. Anderton, we need you to come in immediately. Claire's heart dropped. What happened? Is Sophia okay? Physically, yes, but there was an incident. When Claire arrived, Sophia was in the principal's office, her eyes red from crying. A boy sat across from her, his mother beside him looking furious. Your daughter attacked my son, the mother said immediately. That's not, Claire started. He called you a gold digger, Sophia shouted, tears streaming. He said you were trying to steal money from the sick man. Claire's world stopped. Sophia, honey, I pushed him because he wouldn't stop. Sophia was sobbing now. Everyone keeps saying mean things about you, and I hate it. The principal cleared her throat. Miss Anderton, given the media attention and the disruption to our learning environment, we think it might be best if Sophia stayed home for a few days, until things settle. You're suspending her? It's for everyone's benefit. She's 7 years old. Claire's voice cracked. She was defending her mother from bullies, and you're punishing her? But she could see it in their eyes. The judgment. The assumption that where there was smoke, there was fire. Maybe Claire was exactly what the headlines said. She took Sophia's hand and left without another word. At home, Claire held her crying daughter, feeling everything crumble around her. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." "Why are people so mean?" Sophia whispered. Claire had no answer. Her phone rang. Benjamin. She declined the call. He called again. She declined again. Then a text. "Please talk to me. I saw the news. Let me help." Claire stared at the message, anger building in her chest. This was his fault, his world. His money made everything complicated. She typed back, "You want to help? Leave me alone." This was a mistake. All of it. Her phone rang immediately. This time she answered. "Claire, don't do this." "Don't do what?" Her voice was sharp with pain. "My daughter got suspended because of you, because of us, because I made the mistake of saving your life. That's not fair." "Fair?" Claire laughed bitterly. "You know what's not fair? That I tried to do the right thing, and now my 7-year-old is paying the price. That I can't work, can't leave my house, can't live because everyone thinks I'm using you." "Then let me fix it. Please, you can't fix this." Claire was crying now. "Don't you understand? Your world and mine don't mix. They can't mix. I was stupid to think even for a second." She stopped herself. "To think what?" Benjamin's voice was desperate. Claire closed her eyes. "It doesn't matter. This needs to end. The press conference didn't work. Being seen together made it worse. So we're done. Go back to your life. I'll figure out mine." "Claire, he paused. "I care about you. Don't." Her voice broke. "Please don't make this harder. What if I'm falling in love with you?" The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Claire's breath caught. Every part of her wanted to say it back, because somewhere in the chaos and the late-night calls and the way he looked at her, she'd started falling too. But Sophia was crying in the next room. The window was still boarded up. Her daughter had been suspended. Her life was in ruins. "Then stop," Claire whispered, "because I can't love you back. Not when loving you costs me everything." She hung up before he could respond. Benjamin stared at his phone, the silence deafening. His assistant knocked softly. "Sir, the board wants to meet. They're concerned about the publicity affecting stock prices." "Tell them to go to hell." Patricia's eyes widened. "Sir." I said no. Benjamin's voice was hollow. "Cancel everything. I don't care about stock prices. I don't care about the board." "What do you care about?" Benjamin looked out his window at the city below, at the world he'd built, the empire that suddenly felt like a prison. "Someone I can't have," he said quietly. That night, Claire sat on her couch, Sophia finally asleep, and let herself cry. Real, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep. She did everything right, worked hard and raised her daughter and helped a stranger. And somehow, she still lost. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Corleone stocks drop amid romance scandal. Board calls emergency meeting. Claire felt sick. She was ruining his life too. Another message, this time from an unknown number. "You're poison. Stay away from him or else." Then another, "Gold-digging whore." Claire turned off her phone, wrapped herself in a blanket, and wondered how a single act of kindness had destroyed everything. She'd saved Benjamin's life, but in doing so, she'd lost her own. 2 weeks of silence. Claire returned to work at the diner. The reporters had finally moved on to the next scandal. Her life slowly, painfully, returned to something resembling normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. She thought about Benjamin constantly, about his voice at 2 a.m., about the way he'd hesitated when asked if he was attracted to her, about the words he'd said before she hung up. "What if I'm falling in love with you?" But she made her choice. Sophia came first. Always. It was Sophia who changed everything. "Mom?" She looked up from her homework one evening. "Are you sad because of the sick man?" Claire's throat tightened. "It's complicated, sweetie." "Do you love him?" "Sophia, because you look at your phone the way I look at the toy store window, like you want something but think you can't have it. 7 years old and already too wise." Claire sat beside her daughter. "Even if I did, it wouldn't work. Our lives are too different." "That's dumb," Sophia said simply. "You taught me that being different is good. That's what makes people special." "It's not that simple. Grandma used to say that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the scary thing anyway." Sophia's eyes were serious. "You saved his life, Mom. That was brave. Why can't you be brave again?" Claire stared at her daughter, something cracking open in her chest. "Why can't you be brave again?" That night, Claire did something terrifying. She texted Benjamin. Can we talk? The response was immediate. When? Where? I'll come to you. Tomorrow, the place where this started. Mel's Diner, 10 p.m. I'll be there. Claire spent the next day terrified. She'd pushed him away, told him to stop loving her. What if he'd listened? What if 2 weeks had been enough for him to move on? But at 9:55 p.m., as she wiped down the same tables she'd been cleaning for 12 years, the diner door opened. Benjamin stood there, looking uncertain and hopeful, and exactly like the man who'd clutched his chest in booth 7. "Hi," he said. "Hi," Claire whispered back. They stood there, the empty diner around them, the place where everything had started. "I'm sorry," they both said at the same time. Benjamin smiled slightly. "You first." Claire took a breath. "I was wrong. I pushed you away because I was scared, because accepting help felt like weakness, because falling for you felt dangerous." She paused. "But my daughter reminded me that being brave means doing the scary thing anyway." "Your daughter is very wise." "She is." Claire stepped closer. "I don't know how this works, how we work, but I know that pushing you away hurts worse than any headline. And I know that She stopped, gathering courage. "I'm falling for you too." Benjamin closed the distance between them in 3 steps. "I quit the board," he said. "Stepped down as CEO. Made my COO the new head of Corleone Industries." Claire's eyes went wide. "What? Why?" "Because you were right. I was so busy building an empire that I forgot how to be human. So I'm taking time to figure out what actually matters." He cupped her face gently. "And Claire, you matter. More than any company, more than any fortune." "Benjamin, I'm not asking you to accept my money or my help. I'm asking you to accept me, just me. Is that something you can do?" Claire felt tears slip down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, and then he kissed her soft and gentle and full of promise. In the same booth where he almost died, where a stranger had held his hand, where everything had changed. When they finally pulled apart, Claire was smiling through her tears. "So what, now?" she asked. "Now," Benjamin said, "we figure it out together." 3 months later, the real battle began. Benjamin had stepped back from his company, but he hadn't abandoned his resources. And he'd learned something important. Claire didn't need him to solve her problems. She needed him to stand beside her while she solved them herself. Together, they crafted a plan. Claire enrolled back in school, finishing her social work degree, but this time she didn't do it alone. Benjamin watched Sophia on study nights, made sure Claire had time to breathe, supported without smothering. And when the media tried to resurface the story, Benjamin did something unprecedented. He held a press conference alone. "I'm here to set the record straight," he told the cameras. "Claire Anderton saved my life. Not for money, not for fame, because that's who she is. And the fact that our society punishes kindness, that we assume everyone has an angle that says more about us than it does about her." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "I'm not here to announce a relationship or a business deal. I'm here to say that the best thing that ever happened to me was almost dying in a diner and having a stranger care enough to stay. That's the story. That's the truth. And if you can't accept that 2 people from different worlds might actually connect as human beings, then that's your problem, not ours." The clip went viral, but this time the narrative shifted. The real climax came when Claire's landlord tried to evict her, citing media disruption and unwanted attention. Benjamin wanted to buy the building. Claire refused. Instead, she did something better. She called a tenants meeting, spoke to every neighbor who'd been affected, apologized for the chaos, and then she organized using the social work skills she'd been learning in a tenants' union to fight the unfair eviction. Benjamin watched from the back of the room as Claire rallied people, spoke truth to power, transformed her crisis into community action. "That's my girl," he whispered. Mrs. Chen, sitting beside him, smiled. "She doesn't need saving, you know." "I know," Benjamin said. "That's why I love her." The landlord backed down. The eviction was dropped, and Claire proved to herself and to everyone watching that her strength had never come from being alone. It came from knowing when to stand up and when to let people stand with her. That night, on her apartment steps window finally fixed, Sophia asleep upstairs, Claire and Benjamin sat watching the stars. "You were amazing today," Benjamin said. "I learned from the best." Claire squeezed his hand. "My mom always said that accepting help isn't a weakness, I just needed to find someone worth accepting help from. Is that what I am? Claire turned to face him. You're the person who makes me braver, who makes me want to try, who saw me at my worst and stayed anyway. Benjamin kissed her forehead. You saved my life twice, you know. Once in that diner, once when you gave me a second chance. We saved each other, Claire corrected, and she was right. If you're loving this journey of second chances and unexpected love, please subscribe to Unbroken Truths. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more stories like this with you. The final piece fell into place when Sophia came home from school, no longer suspended, welcome back with a drawing. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands, one tall man, one woman, one little girl. Above them, in crooked letters, my family. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Sophia, honey, is it okay? Sophia asked nervously. Can Mr. Benjamin be part of our family? Benjamin knelt beside her. Only if you want me to, be. I do, Sophia said seriously. You make Mom smile, and you answer all my dinosaur questions, and you don't treat me like I'm little. Then yes, Benjamin said, voice thick with emotion. I would be honored. He looked up at Claire, and she saw everything in his eyes, the question, the hope, the love. She nodded, unable to speak, and just like that, 3 broken pieces became whole. 1 year later, Claire stood in the kitchen of the community center she'd dreamed about for years, watching Sophia help serve lunch to families who needed it most. The Second Chances Cafe wasn't just a name, it was a promise that kindness mattered, that people could change, that different worlds could collide and create something beautiful. The center had been Claire's idea, born from late-night conversations with Benjamin about how to make a real difference. Not charity, partnership. She'd finished her social work degree 6 months ago, walked across that stage with Sophia and Benjamin cheering louder than anyone. The center was her vision, her leadership, her heart poured into every detail. Benjamin had provided the funding quietly, without fanfare or press releases. He'd learned that the best kind of help was the invisible kind, the kind that empowered rather than overshadowed. Mom, Mrs. Rodriguez brought tamales again, Sophia called out, her voice bright with excitement. At 8 years old, she'd become the unofficial greeter, remembering everyone's names and stories, asking about their days with genuine interest. Claire smiled, tying her apron. In the reflection of the industrial refrigerator, she caught sight of herself, hair pulled back, face free of makeup, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt with the center's logo. She looked tired and happy. So different from the exhausted waitress who wiped down tables at Mel's diner, counting tips and wondering if this was all life had to offer. How many today? Benjamin's voice came from behind her. Claire turned to find him rolling up his sleeves, already reaching for serving gloves. He came every Tuesday and Thursday without fail, treating this work with the same dedication he'd once given to board meetings and quarterly reports. 53 families, Claire said. We're running low on vegetable soup, but I'll make more. Benjamin kissed her cheek, a casual gesture that still made her heart flutter. You handle the front, I'll handle the kitchen. Claire watched him move toward the stove, this billionaire who'd learned to cook bulk meals and wash industrial-sized pots, who knew the names of every family they served, who discovered that meaning wasn't found in building empires, but in touching individual lives. Mr. Benjamin, a little boy, maybe 6 years old, tugged on Benjamin's sleeve. Did you bring the book, the one about space? Of course I did, Tommy. Benjamin pulled a hardcover book from his bag. But you have to promise to tell me 3 new facts you learned when I see you next week. I promise. Claire felt her throat tighten with emotion. This man who was dying and alone in that diner booth, now surrounded by people who loved him not for his money, but for his patient answers and terrible dad jokes and genuine care. During a quiet moment, Claire and Benjamin found themselves alone in the supply closet, taking inventory. You know what today is? Benjamin asked, counting cans of beans. Tuesday? It's been exactly 1 year since you texted me to meet at Mel's. He set down his clipboard, turning to face her. 1 year since you decided to be brave. Claire smiled. My daughter's advice, remember? Smart kid. Benjamin stepped closer. Claire, this year with you has been the best year of my life. Not because of grand gestures or dramatic moments, but because of this. Tuesday afternoons serving soup, Sunday mornings with Sophia and her dinosaur books, falling asleep next to you and waking up knowing I get to do it all again. Benjamin. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Claire's breath caught. What are you? I'm not asking you to marry a billionaire, he said softly, opening the box to reveal a simple silver band with a small, elegant stone. I'm asking you to marry the man who found his purpose in a diner booth, who learned what love actually means from a waitress who refused to give up on him. Tears streamed down Claire's face. That's not fair. You know I cry at everything now. Is that a yes? That's a let me see the ring first. But she was already reaching for it, her hands shaking. Benjamin slipped it on her finger. Perfect fit. I had them engrave something inside. Claire tilted the band to read the tiny inscription, Booth 7, where everything changed. You're such a sap, she whispered. Is that a yes? Claire grabbed his face and kissed him deep and long and full of everything she felt but couldn't say. When they finally broke apart, she was laughing through her tears. Yes, obviously yes. Did you really think I'd say no? I was about 60% sure, Benjamin admitted. Only 60? You're unpredictable. It's one of the things I love most about you. They stood there in the supply closet, surrounded by canned goods and cleaning supplies, and Claire thought about how far they'd come. From strangers to this. From two broken people to something whole. We should tell Sophia, Claire said. Already did. Benjamin grinned sheepishly. I asked her permission last week. She made me promise 3 things. That I'd never stop answering her dinosaur questions. That we'd get a dog, and that she could be the flower girl. We're getting a dog? Apparently that was non-negotiable. Claire laughed the kind of deep, genuine laugh that came from pure joy. I love you, you know that? I know, Benjamin said. I love you too. Even though you refuse to let me buy you anything fancy, and you insist on driving that death trap of a car, and you make me eat vegetables. Someone has to keep you alive, Corleone. That's what you've been doing from the start. Later that evening, after the center closed and the last family had been served, Claire, Benjamin, and Sophia sat on the front steps watching the sunset paint the sky in gentle colors. Sophia was examining Claire's ring with serious concentration. It's pretty, but not too fancy. Good choice, Mr. Benjamin. I learned from the best, he said, winking at Claire. Does this mean we're really a family now? Sophia asked. Like official? Claire pulled her daughter close. We've been a family for a while now, sweetheart. This just makes it more official. And we're getting a dog? Yes, Claire sighed. We're getting a dog. Sophia threw her arms around both of them, squealing with delight. And in that moment, Claire felt something she hadn't felt in years, complete peace. The sense that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Claire and Benjamin sat on her apartment steps, the same steps where they'd sat a year ago, tentatively rebuilding what had been broken. Do you ever think about that night? Claire asked. In the diner? Every day, Benjamin said. I think about how close I came to dying, how close I came to never meeting you. I think about how scared I was, how I almost didn't approach your booth. Claire shook her head. What if I'd just ignored my instincts? What if I'd let someone else handle it? But you didn't. Benjamin took her hand. You chose to be brave, to help a stranger, and that choice changed everything. Claire looked at the ring on her finger, catching the streetlight. You know what's funny? I spent so many years thinking I had to do everything alone, that accepting help was a weakness, that pride was the same as strength. And now I know that the bravest thing I ever did wasn't save your life. She met his eyes. It was letting you save mine right back. Benjamin kissed her hand. We saved each other. We did, Claire agreed, and we're going to keep doing it, every single day. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, Claire felt the deep satisfaction of a life that had found purpose, not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in the simple, beautiful choice to love someone and to let yourself be loved in return. And Benjamin felt something he'd never expected to feel again. Peace that didn't depend on achievements or acquisitions, but on the simple joy of being known and valued for who he was, not what he owned. What are you thinking about? Claire asked. My mother, Benjamin said softly. She used to say that angels come disguised as ordinary people doing ordinary things with extraordinary hearts. Smart woman. She would have loved you, Benjamin said. I would have loved all of it. The center, Sophia, the life we're building. I wish I could have met her. Me too. Benjamin squeezed her hand. But I think she knew. Somehow she knew that one day I'd find someone who'd remind me what really matters. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, watching the world settle into night. Benjamin? Claire said softly. Yeah? Thank you for almost dying in my diner. He laughed, the kind of deep, genuine laugh that came from pure joy. Thank you for refusing to let me. The wedding was a small, intimate, held at the community center, surrounded by the families they'd served and the friends they'd made. Sophia walked down the aisle as a flower girl, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself, scattering petals with serious concentration. Mrs. Chen officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. And when Claire walked down the aisle, no father gave her away, because she'd been giving herself away to this man piece by piece for 2 years now. Benjamin cried. You look beautiful, he whispered when she reached him. You look like you're about to pass out. A little bit. They said their vows surrounded by mismatched chairs and the smell of industrial kitchen cleaner and the echoes of all the lives that had been touched in this place. Claire promised to keep Benjamin grounded. Benjamin promised to keep Claire brave. They both promised to keep showing up, day after day, choosing each other over and over again. When they kissed, everyone cheered, Sophia loudest of all. And in the back of the room, a photographer from a small local paper captured a single image, a billionaire and a waitress, now husband and wife, surrounded by people who loved them for reasons that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with heart. The headline the next day read, Second Chances Cafe founder marries partner in private ceremony, a love story built on kindness. But Claire didn't read it. She was too busy planning the center's expansion, playing with their new rescue dog, named Dino, courtesy of Sophia, and living a life that proved the most important truth she'd ever learned. Sometimes the most beautiful changes come from the simplest acts of caring. And sometimes, saving someone else's life is exactly how you save your own. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to Unbroken Truths and share your own stories of unexpected kindness in the comments below. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that one moment, one choice, one act of courage can change absolutely everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that love, in all its messy, complicated, beautiful forms, is always worth fighting for. Until next time, keep showing up, keep being brave, keep choosing kindness, because you never know whose life you might save or who might save yours right back.